Okay, so from your notes, you should be able to find all of these organisms right here. Understanding exactly what they are might be a little bit different. So remember the lichens, okay, that's strictly a pioneer species producer. The pine trees, they're really intermediate species. There might be a few left over in the climax community, but they're really an intermediate species. Again, a producer. Remember, producers, anything that do photosynthesis, okay? Hickory tree, all plants are producers. The hickory, that's climax community. That's a very slow growing tree. However, the small annual plants, that is a pioneer species. Shrubs are intermediate. There's not enough soil for them in pioneer, and there's too much shade in climax, so they are an intermediate species. Perennials, these are plants that grow year after year after year. Kind of comparing it to like the small annual plants. We get perennials appearing in the pioneer, okay, is a pioneer species. We will still see them in intermediate as well. It doesn't specify that, but we do see them in intermediate as well. All right, insects. I love this. Where are there not insects? Insects are everywhere. Insects, it doesn't matter what we're looking at. We have insects everywhere. Now, most insects are decomposers. There are a few that are herbivores. All right, so when I hear some herbivores, many of them are decomposers. All right, a wolf. All right, wolves need to eat larger things, right? So the things that a wolf eats, like rabbits or deer, those things have to live where there's plenty of food. So we're going to be looking at intermediate and climax. We won't find it in a pioneer species. There's just not enough food to sustain it. Same with the deer. There's not enough food to sustain a deer here, but there is here. Bears. Again, bears eat larger plants and animals. They need to have a lot of access to food. It needs to be intermediate and climax community. Worms. Worms are found everywhere. They are decomposers. Okay. Birds that eat insects, you'll find them anywhere. You'll pretty much find insects. So you'll find them in all of these. When it comes to pioneer species, you will see insect and seed-eating birds kind of towards the end. When you have a more mature pioneer species going into intermediate species, we will start seeing lots of birds in this area. Okay? So they will be found in all three. A vulture, they eat large dead things. Okay? They're going to eat things that are large and already dead. So they are intermediate and climax. You're going to find them actually a little bit more in climax communities where there's like lots of food, but they will be in intermediate as well. Same with owls. You'll find them in some intermediate species areas, but they're primarily going to be found in a climax community. Now, over here, how do we classify? So, birds that eat insects are insectivores. Birds that eat seeds are herbivores. Vultures are scavengers. Owls are carnivores. Bears are omnivores. Deer are herbivores. And wolves are carnivores. Okay? Any questions?
You know the bear eats fruit and stuff too?
Yeah, bears eat fruit, fish. If they can catch a deer, they'll eat it. So they'll eat a variety of things. The other side. First, we need to understand what we're looking at. This is what's called a Venn diagram. So we have this circle over here. And in this circle, we are going to put all the facts, information about primary succession. This circle is going to contain all the information about secondary succession. Where the circles overlap, this space right here that's both secondary and primary, that's where we write down what applies to both primary succession and secondary succession. So I'm going to start here in the middle. Primary and secondary succession, what do they have in common? Well, when we open those notes up, we see that they both have pioneer species, they both have intermediate species, and they both have the climax community. So I'm going to put those in the notes, right there in the middle. The pioneer species, the intermediate species, this idea that this progress, they still have the same names, they still have the same species they progress through. So that's what they have in common. Now let's look at just the specific differences. Primary succession has lichens because lichens grows on bare rock. Secondary succession, there are no lichens because there is no bare rock. It starts with soil. Okay? This already has lots of soil when we're dealing with secondary succession. Primary succession, lots of rock with very little soil. With the intermediate species, pretty much everything's the same except the soil. This has lots of soil, and this is some soil. That soil is getting deeper and deeper as we go. With climax community, they're pretty much the same. There's really not any difference between the primary succession, secondary succession, climax community. What are the other differences between primary and secondary succession? Well, primary succession, if you remember, is the very slow process of making soil. In secondary succession, the soil is already made, so this is a much faster process because there's already soil there. This one starts with bare rock, whereas secondary succession starts with the destruction. All of the plants are gone, all the plants are dead, and now we have to start over, but there's soil there. And there's your differences. All right, this worksheet, we are going to glue it in. Thin line of glue in the center of the page. In the binding, just a little bit of glue. Take the worksheet, tuck it in. So that's ecological succession, primary and secondary succession, which includes pioneer species, intermediate species, and climax community.